even if it's like 15 minutes of your day, just to play what if, just to take the seatbelt off and just
Yeah.
like let your mind walk into a meadow for 15 minutes. That's where the poetry is. That's where the magic is.
Hello and welcome back, friends, to Vision to Vibe. This humble show I have here where I get to sit down with marketers, creators that I really respect out there in the mostly B2B space. And invite them to come into the studio here and talk about some moments, or maybe just one key moment, a great campaign where they had a vision and they rallied all the key players from sales, from marketing, from product, from PR, from the executive team, whatever it is, to create a vibe, to get something out there that resonated with people and made them say, hey, give me some more, play that again. What else you got? So I'm here with Chris Hutchins. Chris, thanks for joining.
Nick Sal, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have both of our nerderies are in full tilt this afternoon. We've got all of our swag and our gear down there. There's one thing Chris and I like to bond over is just our love of nerdy content and shows and all that good stuff. So, but Chris and I are going to be, another thing we like to nerd out is about marketing, right, Chris, and content creation and building some community around that. So if you don't know Chris, you haven't been following him on LinkedIn and whatnot, he's been at a number of different B2B firms, leading bleeding edge B2B SaaS firms, and trying to basically help make highly technical, highly businessy style ideas and concepts and facts and information and actually make it enjoyable to consume and be a part of. Maybe even make it surprising, entertaining, but certainly engaging and making you want to learn more and hear more. So Chris, thanks for joining us here in the proverbial lab here. And you've got this superpower, right, of making these highly technical B2B content actually engaging. So I just want to ask you, how do you
I also
convince
have a superpower of bringing a cat into the studio.
the
So
cat's like, look,
I hope we don't mind if
your cat's like, if you thought the show wasn't going to be about me, you've got another thing coming.
it's my Wookiee co-pilot.
Oh, that's nice.
There you
Yeah,
go.
we got our cat downstairs. As soon as you want to do anything serious, she's like, I'm stepping on this board game. I'm going all over your computer. What about me? You have a good sense of humor. You find a way to make some light out of something while still keeping it educational. So how do you do that? Top of your head, Chris, like what's your mindset for how you convince serious marketers, and I'm sure you've run up a bunch of them, and engineers, that it's okay to create some content that might actually make people crack a smile?
Yeah, you know what I think that my philosophy kind of goes back to college when I was in journalism school. I studied to be a newspaper reporter, and one of the things that was kind of banged into my head very early was to get the attention of the reader or the audience as quickly as you could and as efficiently as you could. And that's kind of carried as I pivoted to B2B content marketing years ago. That kind of stuck with me. That was almost like if you can kind of capture that lightning in a bottle for every introduction to a blog post or every subject line of an email or whatever it might be, and really capture their attention and essentially what I call activate propulsive curiosity, right? To get them to
Hook them in.
yeah, you're right. And to kind of like, and do that every paragraph, at the end of every paragraph or at the end of every other paragraph, so that you earn the right to have them make it to the very end of the story, then you're on to something. And so what I've tried to do, not only in my own, B2B content marketing, writing and storytelling, but also as a director and an editor of content of peers and colleagues, is to bring that kind of sensibility to it where, you don't want a lot of what I call throat clearing at the beginning of a story. You never want to take your audience's time or intelligence for granted. I'm a big fan of, look, if we can assume that the reader has been in their industry for 10 years, we don't need to do a lot of, table setting in terms of like describing the state of the industry. They know the state of the industry. Let's just get to the problem and then, figure out how to solve it.
Sound like a peer, sound like a chum bellying up to the bar here talking together.
Completely, right?
Yeah.
And I think, because otherwise you're burning through, those are empty calories and time that you're burning through the patience of the reader, but you're also just telling them that, you're telling them things that they learned 15 years ago in their career. And so between that kind of commitment to propulsive curiosity, but also I've always had like a sense of whimsy and a little impish sense of humor that I would always kind of bring to my journalism career whenever I could. And when appropriate, I've always tried to bring that into my, the B2B, content that me or my team is creating to, again, in mostly because in a world of dead-eyed, vanilla, top-of-funnel content or, just dead-eyed, conventional demand gen campaigns where we're just saying, like, everybody knows what's gonna be said, nothing is actually persuasive, we're just kind of doing a checkbox or a color by numbers, content campaign or whatever it is. Just about anything outside of those lines generates, excitement and attention and can, when you're really lucky, that kind of like viral share where it's not only the success of the campaign itself that is generating conversions and interest in the community, but also just like the interest of your peers and wanting to, share that positive or that interesting narrative experience with their peers as a sign of, best practices or whatever it might be. And I've been lucky enough to like have that happen a few times in my career, and it's been super rewarding.
I want to talk about that actually. One of those campaigns that I saw you do real well at 6sense, where I said, "This is it. This is what you were just talking about." But you and I obviously believe what you just said, Chris. Most of us people who embrace content creation, people who are regular subscribers of this podcast, we're like, "Yeah, absolutely, that's what we should be doing in B2B." And it stinks, and you're up against, you've got tons of headwinds if you don't have that. But why is it still then, Chris, that in almost every conversation I'm sure you've been a part of when they're concepting these things, and I know I've been a part of, people are like, ooh, impish humor. These are enterprise buyers. Even though you and I know these are our peers, we know these people well, they're human beings just like anybody else. There's a fear that if we go to humor, if we go to a little bit of tongue in cheek or sarcasm or whatever it is, the entertainment factor, we're going to lose credibility. And that
Yeah,
might hurt the idea, that might hurt our sales rep. That might hurt that we're going to tee them up with next. Or that's going to hurt the price tag that we're asking them for or whatever it is. How have you battled that, especially as you began in this career in B2B with that's your DNA you just described to us? That
yeah,
works. I've seen that work again and again. And yet by default, the people you probably started out with, especially if you're starting in this content space in B2B are
mhm.
like, no, thank you. That's risky.
You gotta, I mean, for me, it's a matter of kind of like, finding those hills just finding those hills and permitting yourself as a creative to think outside of the confines of the Excel spreadsheet that, our keepers, and not necessarily, the CMO, but, the people, that sign our checks and other, places of the business are allergic to. They don't, if it's hard to quantify, if it's squishy in any way, if we're talking about things like emotion and humor and revelation, that doesn't make any sense to them. And their job is to, as bouncers of the books, is to be highly protective of their spend. I totally get that. And so what I have found is that you pick the hills that you want to fight on and then or fight for, and occasionally the ones that you want to die on, right? And and those are like, and I'm really selective about that because you can just become punch drunk, or an audience can be punch drunk to either. And I think that either in both extremes do compromise credibility. Oh my gosh, they're just phoning it in again with the content. It's just the same thing that I read over at their competitor's website, and that compromises credibility. And like their tongue is planted so firmly in cheek all the time that it's hard for me to take them seriously because it's all just one big freaking joke all the time. There's this tightrope that we have to walk. And I have found that like using it for specific instances, like, hey, you know what, maybe we can do something a little whimsical with this product release. Not in the initial release of the product. We'll make that all straight-laced and, military corners. But now we're 3 weeks away. We're 3 weeks out from that product drop. Is there something a little playful we can do with a blog post that, that might illuminate or illustrate the value of the product in a way that's non-obvious, but, propulsively funny and propulsively curious. And so I've just found a lot of success in kind of like doing these kind of nichey things that, often blow up in a way or become successful in a way that is unexpected because the expectations were managed from the get-go.
I love that you just talked us through these things, Chris, because frankly, you anticipated one of my questions, which is I was going to say, you've been at the helm of content companies like 6sense and ZoomInfo, just to name a few. And I wanted to ask what your philosophy was, how you strike that balance between educating the audience and entertaining them. You just talked about it. Find your niche, try like maybe a tier 3, a hill that you can actually take. You're not going to necessarily have to die on this time. Show the proof, and then you get their buy-in for take it a little bit further.
Yeah.
So at 6sense, that's how I came to know you. I was like, this Chris Hutchins guy gets it. He knows how to thread the needle you've been just talking about. So I know you didn't just create content over there. Like, you helped create sort of a vibe. You got people talking internally at the company I was running partnerships at, certainly among others in the ecosystem. So can you take us inside a campaign that you did that you're most proud of? When you turn some dry SaaS, or maybe not dry, but just like highly technical, like you said, speeds and feeds type product type launch, and made it something that people actually wanted to engage with because it had a vibe, it had like a feeling about a visceral problem, not just a certain feature set.
Most of my career has been in B2B SaaS, 20 years basically. But along the way, I became a novelist who was kind of known for using the internet. This was way back when podcasting was a brand new idea. Using the internet, using podcasting, using like fan generated content, et cetera, et cetera.
If only I leaned in that hard 20 years ago, man.
Yeah, right.
Those were the days.
They
Those
were
were
the
the days.
days. They were
Yeah.
the days.
Yeah.
And I certainly wasn't a bona fide first mover, but I saw where the wind was blowing, and
Yeah.
and and
You were
and the
leaning in. Yeah.
and the fans that were attracted to my science fiction thriller novels were just they were so passionate. And so what I would do is I would figure out ways to kind of like help create, like, give them opportunities to tell stories, or give myself an opportunity to tell stories in my fictional world using video or audio or illustrations or whatever. And came to be able to I was hired to write a novel where this is no kidding, and it's such a cool idea, where the novel came with physical objects like ID cards and birth certificates and death certificates and like arrest records and
Is it related to the story?
it was all like in a packet that came with the book, and the clues that you would find in the pages of the novel, like phone
Oh,
numbers.
like little artifacts used for solving a
Mhm.
murder mystery or something like that.
That's correct, and they would propel you to clues that you would see in these assets that came with the book, would then propel you, if you were curious enough and wanted to do this, to go to call the phone number and then use the voicemail password that you found on the business card to listen to, the voicemail of one of the characters in the book, or to visit a business website, and because you know the email password of one of the characters, you can hack into their email and read a bunch of different, addresses, some spooky things that people are talking about, or some kind of conspiracy stuff that enhances your experience of reading the book and your understanding of the
Yeah.
story. Okay.
Yeah, it
So
invites the audience to basically come on, be part of the stage, be part of the production almost. I mean, this
yeah, yeah,
blows choose your own adventure out of the water.
that's right.
This is I'm solving the mystery here. I'm calling a number like a fake number basically, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Going through a fake email address, but to give you the visceral feeling of what it would be like to be the character doing that. Wow.
That's right. And a treat, what I made sure we put into this experience, this out of book experience, as I called it, was there were beats in that out of book experience where you, as the a participant, would learn more about the story or the motive of the murder, or the more about the murder victim, than the hero of the novel would. Right. So like your
Yes.
participation is further rewarded by you knowing more, like with exclusive knowledge that that the characters in the book wouldn't get. Well,
That's a
this
powerful little thing just to bookmark for our audience here. I love that concept of empowering the audience to almost know more than the crafters of the story, at least conceptually, to make them feel like I have inside information. Everybody feels good knowing that.
and it's also to, and this is in a way, this is game design, where you are incentivizing people, you're inviting people into this world, but you're making the effort, they're investing, because it's no trivial matter to, put together that there's a clue here and a clue here. And then, like, if I call the number and I do this, and I got to make time to do that, and I'm using my brain to do that, like that's an investment of effort. And if there's nothing meaningful on the other side of that, or if that experience falls flat in some way, as a creative, your host, as a storyteller, you're letting down the anticipation and the expectation that you're bringing to it. Much like, you start a video game, and within the first, I don't know if you remember Super Mario Brothers,
Oh,
within
sure I do. Come on now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like within the first 30 seconds of the game, you know what the whole game is about. You jump up, you hit the brick, you hit you step on the mushroom, the mushroom villain. You do the mushroom, and it makes you grow, and that's really all you need to know, right? And that's kind of how how we approached it was, let's give these folks the tools, and then make sure that the experience that they have as they pass through the veil into this kind of out of novel world makes it worthwhile to their their curiosity and the time that they're investing. Now, I promise all of this is going somewhere. It's
Well,
gonna
that's what I was gonna say. These are early experiences. These were lessons learned that you could see what the potential was.
yeah, and I was hired after that by a few marketing agencies that were promoting like film releases and television show releases. And again, the idea here was using multi-channel experiences, like a film that you could watch on a web browser. The beginning of the experience, you put in your mobile phone number for reasons that aren't, like you just do it. And then the film starts, and the people in a car that's on the side of a deserted road wake up, and they look at their phone to see what's going on, and the last number they called is your phone number. And
Wow.
then they call
They talked to you about how can we make that happen, put that together and sort of personalized, like dynamically personalized sort of video
and
experience?
yes,
Holy
and then,
moly.
like, based on what you said on these key points in this film, right? Like, do we turn right at the corner or do we turn left? The story, of course, as a choose your own adventure with a branching narrative would do this, but the idea here is that, like, your participation is rewarded through a completely unique experience that, like, another person, who says to go left when you said go right, wouldn't have, right? And the thing had, like, I don't know, like maybe 5 or 6 different endings, blah, blah, blah. So, and again, the idea here is that let's leverage different media and different communication channels in ways that, break through a passive experience, right?
Yes.
And into something where you again, you're invited to play, right?
Yes. Invite them
And
to play. I like that.
and play can mean a lot of things, but for us, it was like literally like play. Come into this unusual world that we're in, and be a participant. So let's fast forward to my time at 6sense, and I've been a successful director of content strategy there for several years, and this competitor takeout. The demand gen campaign kind of comes up, right?
Let's
And
take
the
a beat and tell them what in the B2B world, because some people do this, some people
sure,
don't. Competitor takeout. Why do we gotta do that? What's happening
yeah,
there? We don't have to
well,
mention the competitor, but like what's a competitor takeout in the world of
well,
content?
yeah. There are times when your business wants to differentiate itself from other businesses in the space, particularly ones that you want to get some churn over there at that at that business. You want customers there to drop that solution and come over to your
Take them
company.
out, put you in. Give
Put
them
you,
the
yeah,
ammo, the feeling, whatever they need, or the sales reps who are working with them, whatever they need to make that case.
that's
Make that
right.
yeah.
That's right. And so, and the opportunity arose where it was like, okay, well, what kind of story are we gonna, tell here? What are the differentiators that we want to, present that we have, and then what kind of shade can we throw on, the shortcomings of the competitor that we're trying to, or competitors that we're trying to poach from. Well, what's interesting is that the product marketing team had kind of already come up with a concept, which was, what if we kind of, hey, in a couple of months, the Valentine's Day is going to be coming. What if we had some kind of like break up with your break up with your vendor and start dating us, right? And so that was kind
Not
of like
bad. Seasonal.
the the seed of this. And the idea, and the original plan was, well, we, meaning content marketing, product marketing, or the marketing team, will write a straight laced ebook or guide or whatever on how to do this, and what to look for in a better data contact provider or whatever. And we'll make it a little funny, and we'll leave it at that, and then our the campaign will be pretty straight laced. And I was like, Okay, but what
Sure.
if?" Right. And so I started thinking to myself, well, like, what could we do with a breakup and like trying to woo you to someone else. Well, as you're breaking, and I'm just going to describe very briskly, like the idea, the
No, please.
mental process, which
Yeah.
was, well, we can just simply do that, and that'll be fine, and it'll check the boxes, and everyone will think it's fine. But like, how can we make this a story? How can we make this a memorable experience? And I kept snagging on a couple of things, which was like relationship counseling. Like what if you had a relationship counselor for your vendor, right?
Mhm.
And or like your B2B, like you're a B2B buyer, and you need a shrink to kind of
Right.
talk, to talk, to
Which
share your.
honestly isn't just entertainment. For those of us who've been in B2B or B2B SaaS, had a CSM or been a CSM or whatever, like had to handle and nurture accounts, like you
It's
are a bit of a therapist sometimes. And if you're
yeah,
a consumer, it's a very emotional thing
It
sometimes what
yeah,
you're
and
dealing with.
I've been a buyer, and I've been locked in, vendor relationships where I'm like, "This is not what I signed up for."
Right?
I feel hoodwinked. I do want to talk to a therapist about this, etcetera. So I
Some
started,
good
kind of.
parallels there, some good empathy
Yeah,
there.
but then I realized that I didn't wanna make light of the idea of relationship counseling, right? Because there are a whole spectrum of very legitimate reasons why you'd wanna speak to a relationship counselor, right? And so.
Great instincts, and I wanna call out, that comes from somebody who's been communicating at scale for a long time. When you were in the press, when you're making novels consumed by a bunch of people, you have to solve for content being consumed by the gamut, the
Right.
spectrum, right? So it's good instincts. Some people who didn't have that experience, hadn't received that angry message or email before from somebody might just go, "Oh, yeah, that won't be a problem,"
Yeah, and you know
you
what?
know?
And I think, and when I kind of presented this landmine to all of my peers, I don't think any of them were like everyone was like, "Oh, you're right. Like we can't, because like we can't, like there are domestic abuse hotlines. There are I mean, there is like child abuse hotlines. We can't screw this up.
Right.
And we
And
need
if
to.
you don't find a way to thread the needle, that's when everybody backs off. "Hey, you know what? Maybe we just shouldn't do that." So how did you deal with that? First
Well,
landmine of your idea. Well,
yeah, Yeah, and, and so, like, it wasn't just, we need to tread carefully, but I'd already come up with solution, which was, well,
nice.
let's dial this back. Let's think about when, phone numbers, calling phone numbers and talking to people was really common. 800 numbers was really common. 900 numbers was really common. And this was the 1990s, right?
Yeah, when we
Where.
were growing up, that's the demo
Right.
you're also selling to a lot of. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm of an age where, I remember those Miss Cleo phone numbers, and I
Oh, yeah.
remember those, those,
The
call me.
blue screen with the yellow numbers and a whole bunch of, like, legalese
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I did was like, well, what if we made this an 800, like a free 800, counseling service phone number that one could call, and there would be a phone tree, right? Just like, dial, press 1 for this, press 2 for that. And press 1 would be to speak to a counselor, which would send you to a BDR who would be like, "Hey, thanks for calling the blah 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 dump your data vendor hotline." And we'd keep up the facade for maybe a minute, and then it would pivot into, "Hey, we're 6sense, and we're glad you called." But
So I'll quickly call out, you did some scripting there. You did
oh yeah, for
maybe a
sure.
little micro enablement for those guys so you make sure that they carry that experience through. Don't do it the whole time. Don't just drop it right away. Don't roll your eyes. Like run with the skit a little bit for a minute or two so that we deliver on this anticipation. Are they really gonna know that I'm part of the story? Like you needed that BDR to be your actor.
Yeah. So and then but this was like one. So like let's say that was extension 1. Press 1 to blah. There was like press 2 to like have a experience a guided meditation of how to, dump your how to come to how to realize your worth as a customer, and realize that you're worth more than this particular vendor is treating you, right? And it was this fun, and all of this was very funny and tongue in cheek, and it went through this whole,
And so
kind of.
that's a recorded sound file you had to source and get and
Yep,
edit and
yep,
put up.
yep.
All
Yeah,
the
we
moving
wrote
parts, man. I love it.
I wrote, and we recorded about 20 minutes of audio for for this multi extension thing, we
Mhm.
hired we were like, look, let's have like celebrities give you pep talks on how to dump your data vendor. And so we hired celebrity sound-alikes. We hired a Morgan Freeman's a celebrity sound-alike and
I
a
hit that button, I think. I obviously
yeah,
participated in the campaign. That's why I wanted you to talk about it. I was like, this is so great. We have to
yeah,
share.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I did the Morgan Freeman one was good.
Yeah, and we did a Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was even better. And in these instances, their scripts were just excerpts of like, some massaged excerpts from the guide, the ebook that we had written, right? So like we were smartly
Did you guys hear
integrating
that? First of
technology.
all, you didn't have to he didn't have to reinvent the wheel for what the messaging was. Product marketing's message still carries through because product marketing can be very attached to making sure the key themes get emphasized, like the key points get emphasized. Like he's doing that. He's saying we're gonna say the same thing we're gonna always say, but we're gonna make it actually land with people because it's gonna be
Yeah, and
interesting.
it's a matter of it's like, I don't think anybody remember when you read a blog post, I don't think that many people will remember the statistics of the blog post or anything. They just remember like moments where it's like, I hadn't thought of it that way. Or this was presented in an interesting way. And with our and with our this approach that I had for, the dump your data vendor hotline, phone line, it was we will have the marketing talking points kind of hiding in plain sight, but because they are surrounded by a really memorable and very unconventional experience like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, it was so funny. And having Arnie give you a pep talk on like your worth as a customer, you're invested in a way that you wouldn't typically be, and because you're invested, you're listening in a way that you typically wouldn't be. If you're gating, well, first off, shame on you if you're gating your content, but if you're gating your content, like what's behind that paywall where you're giving your sacrosanct work email had better be worth it, right? And it better not be some just like, 2 slides worth of horse shit that, came from, I don't know, that were like tweets one time. It's like that is just not the, and we've all been a victim of the bait and switch there, right? And your expectations are mismanaged. You feel like you've been hoodwinked. And I was very sensitive, to that as we were moving forward to this. So I
Man,
saw
there's like the soundbite for the podcast was in there somewhere. I was like, this is absolutely right. We have to reward people for their curiosity and their participation. That's all you're doing here. Some people hear gimmick, something clever. What he's doing, folks, is finding out ways to reward people for being curious and participating with 6sense's message at their launch. That's
yeah.
what's really at play here at Bottom. I grew up in marketing at HubSpot, which like wrote the book on content marketing, this type of like strategy. And what we saw was even if your product was crummy, I'm not saying our product was crummy or anything like that, but if it's hard to use, lots of competition, it's pricey, whatever it might be, this serves as a great proxy to be like, yeah, but we are organized over here. So whatever you think might be the thing you're worried about with this product or our team or how we're going to treat you, are we going to drop some balls or whatever? Like, look at how we did just this. We left nothing out. We didn't miss anything. We were thoughtful to the very end. I think in a world where there's a lot of uncertainty of who to trust and how to trust, that speaks volumes that this company can
I
execute
don't
like this.
disagree. I mean, it really the devil's in the details, and the devil is, and like I think that, and this is something that I don't think that many, B2B companies, and unfortunately a lot of like B2B content marketing creators don't really realize is that like you're the tip of the spear. Same thing with social. You're the tip of the spear. You are the first thing that a prospect encounters, right? You're the beachhead, and if any of that falls short, right? If any of that isn't as crafted as best as you can, to say nothing of a funny landing page and campaign, you're failing. I had a CRO that I worked for years ago. I would file something that he wanted to see, and before he ever looked at it, he'd be like, "Do you love it?
Yeah,
Do you love it?"
that's a question.
Yeah, and it's like, okay. And so, like, and I learned that, like, and what that became was it was an excellent kind of litmus test for me in terms of like, how proud of you, are you of this thing? Is it worthy of your consumption? And 9 times out of 10, unfortunately, and there's all kinds of reasons for this. I'm not slagging anybody or any team, but there's a whole spectrum of reasons why this is, but they often don't stick the landing.
Can you take us to round the story out? Just touch on, help us envision how you got the final sign off from your team, the other, like just what that looked like in this example. What can you tell us about how your budgeting and scoping looked like after that?
'Cause you
Mhm.
talked about a bunch of different things. I know some
Mhm.
of those things you came up with in real time or whatever, so, like,
Mhm. Yeah.
that piece, and then I bet the other thing that people are thinking about is, how do you measure and justify this thing at the end?
Yeah, yeah. So what I did was that I started with my direct supervisor, who was the VP of growth at 6sense's, a cool dude named Adam Kaiser. Is one of these folks who is can be a total like military corners, scissor sharp company man, and you need that, but also has his eye and ear open for something new, something interesting.
'Cause
And what
that'll
I
make that military corners work.
that's
He's
right, that's
he's
right.
been around enough to know. You need
That
that.
correct. And so what I did was that I considered just kinda, like, pitching him in a conversation, but instead, I cooked up a deck, and it wasn't anything, formal. It was just like, "Hey, like, just give me 20 minutes. Give me 15 minutes. Let me walk you through why I think like, what I think this idea ought to be." And in it, it was like, it wasn't just it was pointing out that, like, the opportunity for a phone, line, but it was also pointing out that we can't make fun of relationship counseling. I mean, it was like the whole it was like the wh it I told
Here's
the
the risk. Here's my mitigation plan. Here's the swing we can take. Here's how we're going to make sure it lands
that's
and
it.
not offend anybody. Yeah.
Completely it.
Brilliant. You don't make him have to think, you know?
This the landing page might have a Cosmo like a relationship quiz like this, and I'd have like an excerpt of a Cosmo quiz. It was a very easy sell for Adam because Adam saw the upside.
But the
And then
takeaway is, and I thought you just dropped another, like that could be a podcast opening soundbite you just said earlier, is like understanding the person you're addressing it to. Like you understood Adam, you
then
understood his problems and his challenges. You worked with people like that for years. You understood the culture at 6sense. And we want to keep it classy, yet still be the bleeding edge. And you balanced all that and showed them a vision that you could get behind. You're like, I've got this thing baked out, Adam. And that's another thing I think is that Adam could tell. If he said yes, it's not going to lead to a litany of other problems or things he's going to have to figure out. He's just going to have to
yeah,
say, Chris has got the plan. He understands where the guardrails are. And if I say yes, he's going to run with it. And something remarkable that we've never had is going to come out. So Adam goes,
yeah,
okay, sounds
yeah,
good. Doesn't sound like it's going to cost a fortune. You're being creative. You're being frugal. You're being
yeah,
imaginative. Now we're in the middle. And you're sort of like, wait, how do I draw some boundaries of it? Because
yeah,
as a fellow creative, project management doesn't always come second nature. You have to train it. You get the muscle going. What's
yeah.
a project management tip or idea of what that looked like in the middle?
I would lean on the expertise of my collaborator. It was like with the designers, how much time do you think it would take to, make some kind of goofy ass lo-fi, website? How long do you think, our video director, and so like, how long do you think it would take to make a 5-minute infomercial that is deliberately cheesy? And
Yes.
when you can bring that difference and that uncommonness as frequently as you can to the endeavor, you get people buy in a way that they don't typically because it's like, wait a minute, this counts for something. Like this is something that I would be more proud of if it succeeded, right? This isn't just color, paint by numbers. And I think we all brought ourselves to it in that way. And in terms of like measurement, and this is one of these,
Yeah.
one of these little cop outs where I got to say that, I'm not the measurement person either. So like, but
But you mentioned it already. You look for anecdotes. You're going to look for these early signals or bits of feedback from the inner circle and
it
without.
was, and that was like, and so like anecdotally, it was such a big success that we released like a second wave of content for the campaign, for Valentine's Day specifically.
Not only anecdotally, did you see people commenting on it? You see the team is lighting up, they're leaning in and stretching like they never before, but the powers that be that are watching the master dashboards, which I know 6sense runs a great operation. They watch those numbers like a hawk. Where's the red? All that type of stuff. They even said, this is good. Pour more gas on this fire.
Well over $1 million influenced in pipe for a
Right.
$12,000 campaign. That
All day.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was like, and it, and again, that came from a highly disciplined scope, right? What could we easily achieve? What is the cheapest way to do this? Words are as cheap as it gets. Audio is the next cheapest thing. And, and like in the video, like in the we were using like crappy props for the studio video shoot, right? By design, and that costs nothing. The
Right.
nothing. So
Yeah.
it was all
Cardboard stuff. Yeah.
it was all designed to be just, just to be as lean and deliberately lo-fi as possible, and because we knew if we leaned into that, and instead of like trying to like distract from the cheese, if we leaned into the cheese and celebrated the cheese, that would become a part of its kind of story as it went viral.
What you've just described, Chris, is challenging. We all know this. And therefore, it's the greatest competitive moat you can ever build. Because of course the competitors are first to look, and the competitors will be first to go, oh yeah, see, that was a dumb move, or we can't do that, or this is how we're different, or whatever. And like, it doesn't matter if it attracts your competitors, because what matters is, do you have someone who has the vision to take a creative swing, can marshal the forces, keep it on budget, keep it from going completely off the rails, and get it done. And then maybe even be ready to double down on it if it is a bigger success than you even thought. That's not easily just, oh, copy paste what they did. Not going to happen, right? You just, the story started with Nick. There was 1,000 moving parts here that eventually showed up once we got moving. So I love that. And I
Yeah.
just learned that that does not mean you're about to be copied tomorrow, because even if they knew how to copy, you said it's not hard to do. The will to do it, the vision to do it is what's missing. Take us through as we close out here, Chris. What is the enemy of an idea like this succeeding and actually pulling off? Because it's hard enough to get people to go, oh yeah, no, okay, let's try that and we'll do it. Then you do it. What is the thing people have to watch out for after you may happen to pull off something like this?
And I've been at businesses where, like, I don't know, they were first movers or they like did a really great campaign and they just coasted, right? And that's when ankle biters and competitors start to eat your lunch, right?
Right, right.
So there's that.
We did the funny thing 2 years ago. We're good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. The other thing, and there was a bit of this at 6 Sense, not in a an egregious way, but it was immediately, what other funny thing can we do next?
Right. Funny seems to be working.
Right.
Let's fire hose them with funny.
Right. And while and I wasn't, it wasn't like I'm not up to the challenge. It wasn't anything like that, but it was like, well, wait a minute. We don't want to just keep hitting the same doorbell, right?
Mhm.
Let's let it breathe. But again, it's like, and I understand that, like, if there's a crest of success, like that wave starts to crest, there's a natural inclination to, let's do that. Let's keep doing that. But we know, if you were to look at Hollywood sequels, that doing just that without it being different in some meaningful way, it fails, right? It's just like,
Right. I think the two things you can riff on into infinity was that it was clever, it was bold, and you used some other way better sound bites to describe it. Like, it had empathy and understanding of the audience,
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
That you can go on forever with,
and I think, yeah, and that's a really good point to kind of double down on, is that, like, if you know your audience, and content marketers in particular, and people in sales, I mean, like, these people are like, you just need to be fluent in a way that, like, you need to know them better than you know you, because they get marketed to every day in a way that you as a content marketer or you as a salesperson don't. They smell that fart coming a mile away, brother. And if
Mhm.
you come off like a pretender, like, I mean, like, you've got a second. You literally have a second, right, to cut through the noise. And so like, being respectful of that, and again, like, rewarding the sense of feeling seen. If you can give yourself permission to, I don't know, even if it's like 15 minutes of your day, of your work day, just to play what if, right? Just let your mind, just to take the seatbelt off and get out of this relentlessly paced car that you're in, and just,
Yeah.
like, let your mind walk into a meadow for 15 minutes. You
Yeah.
may find yourself finding things there that are interesting experiences or stories or even angles to traditional blog posts, right? Or an interesting gag or a joke that you might lead with a tweet or a toot or whatever the hell, is like,
Whatever it is now.
you can, I mean, like, that's where the poetry is. That's where the magic is, especially for people who are very accomplished at this role and have been doing it for a long time. You're the one who is locking yourself into that highly tactical, almost like rodent-like survival. You're not living, you're surviving as you feed the blog. Take your 15 minutes or 20 minutes a day, walk out into the meadow and, like, breathe, and you'll find these ideas just kind of flower. And what you do with them is up to you. And then if you feed them up the food chain, what happens to them isn't your call, but you'll be able to sleep at night if you find a good idea that you want to pitch. You'll be able to sleep at night knowing that, you're coloring outside the lines and you took a shot.
And I will just add, if you are a creator, a leader of creatives, a marketing leader, a CEO listening to this, and you feel like either you yourself, someone on your team could use some mindsets of some like-minded, simpatico, camaraderie, whatever, like that's what Chris and I have been for each other as fellow like creators and ralliers of teams to take risks and punch above their weight and stuff like that and connect deeper with their audiences. Chris will talk to you. Chris is sympathetic to this. I'll talk to you. I'm sympathetic to this. Chris, what's the best way for people to find you out there online?
Yeah,
What's
I think,
the network? You
well,
like LinkedIn? You're a LinkedIn guy?
yeah, LinkedIn is good. You can look for me, Chris Hutchins, and I'll come up on LinkedIn. If you wanted to see some of my work and what I'm awfully good at, you can go to born and then dash to to dash ship
Oh
born2ship.com.
yeah. Thank you for coming on, Chris. And I'm sure this will not be the last we'll be hearing from you on
I
your content creating journeys.
I'm honored, and it's been an honor and pleasure. Thank you, sir.